Yes, what is going on, guys? It's that time of year again. I'm so ready. I am so ready for this tournament to start. The draw's been made. We've got 16 high quality qualifiers joining the 16 seeds at the crucible. I'm looking at this draw and I'm thinking, I don't think I've ever seen a stronger lineup before. This could be a bloodbath for the seeds. There's very few players in there you would want to draw. I don't think anyone's really got a favourable tie, so let's just jump right in and I'll try and make my predictions. I'm usually wrong, so if you're a betting person, definitely don't go for what I'm saying. It'll definitely go wrong for you. But let's start at the top. We've got Mark Selby against Joe Perry. I mean, that's just an unbelievable tie to start the tournament off. Mark Selby, double defending champion, going for a fourth world title in 5 years. If he pulls this off, he's a legend. I don't care what you say, I don't care if you absolutely hate the guy. He's a legend. 4 world titles in 5 years, that would be kind of Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry kind of domination. And he's had a quiet season. It's not been, especially when we compare it to last season when he won 5 tournaments, he was unbeatable. He had a really quiet season, but in saying that, he's won the 2 biggest tournaments in China. He won the International Championship in October, and also he won in Beijing last month. So he is coming into this confident, and we know what he's like over this distance. He's practically unbeatable. But Joe Perry, I mean, I said this is a strong lineup of qualifiers. Joe Perry is probably one of the top 2 or 3 players that you definitely wouldn't want to draw. Bags of experience. Got to the semi-finals once, I believe it was in 2008, so it's been a while for him. But he's a tough nut to crack, and he could easily be a top 16 player. He's only just outside of the top 16. Came for a really tough battle against Mark Davis in the qualifiers. Came through 10-7, and I think he was leading 5-0 at some point, so had to withstand a bit of a comeback. There's going to be nerves. This is the first day, first session, and then obviously it comes to a conclusion on Saturday night. I think we're going to get some early drama here. I reckon this could go all the way. They're both very evenly matched. If you're going to beat a seed, you're going to want to beat him in the first round. That's when they're the most vulnerable. That's when Selby is the most vulnerable. You know, he's hard enough to beat over 2 sessions. Once he gets into the 3-session, 4-session matches, I don't think anyone can realistically stop him. So if someone wants to beat him and stop him, now is the time. Joe Perry's got an excellent chance, but I'm just going to edge Selby. I think he's going to nick it in a decider, actually. I think I'll go 10-9 Selby. Next up, we've got the Masters champion, Mark Allen, up against the debutant, the first debutant of the draw, Liam Highfield. Still amazes me that Mark Allen is 16th in the rankings. I know winning the Masters doesn't win you any ranking points, but I still think he's had a pretty good season, especially in the first half. He was very consistent. He reached a final, he got to a few other quarterfinals. He wasn't losing to the lower ranked players. He wasn't losing early on in tournaments. So to see him struggling for his crucible seeding was a surprise, and he got in by the skin of his teeth. Luckily for him, the likes of Joe Perry and Jack Lazowski didn't win in China last month, meaning he was guaranteed 16th seed. Liam Highfield, he's probably the surprise, probably my biggest surprise package. You always get one surprise story, at least. Didn't expect Liam to get through. He's a very talented player. I remember a match against Mark Williams when, I think it was the UK Championship a couple of years ago. They had that really weird battle when like the yellow and the blue was over a corner pocket.
I think he's a player that would prefer a more free-flowing match, and that's what he's got here. Mark Allen will definitely get the balls open. He likes to score. He likes to score very, very quickly as well. The problem is, if Mark Allen starts fast, he is the kind of player that will get on top of you and just won't let you go. He can reel off frames so fast that if he's not careful, Mark Allen could win this match before it's even really begun. It's never nice to say a debutante's going to get a bit of a hiding, but I can't really see this going any other way than a Mark Allen win. I'm going to go 10-4 Allen here. Next, we've got Colin Wilson and Matthew Stevens. This is a really interesting tie. Firstly, it's great to see Matthew Stevens back at the Crucible. He's been slipping down the rankings for a long while now. And as Neil Folds correctly said during the qualifiers, he's not even 40 yet. And when we look at what O'Sullivan's doing, what John Higgins is doing, what Mark Williams is doing, there is no reason why Matthew Stevens can't have a renaissance period. He's more than good enough. He should have won more. It's amazing to think he's only won one ranking title, and of course he won the Masters as well. He's the kind of player that definitely comes alive for the World Championships. And make no mistake, this is a really difficult draw for Colin Wilson. Another player looking to win his first world title. He's got to the quarterfinals the past 2 years. And he's had another good season, Kyron. Obviously, he lost in the Masters final. He's lost in 2 other finals. He wants to win more titles. He's ready to get to that next stage where he's one of the top 4, top 5 players in the world who are just consistently winning. Very solid temperament, very solid cue action. His game is also very suited to the Crucible as well. I think just on form, really, I'm going to decide this match. I think Stevens will give it a really good go, and I'd love to see him win. But I think Kyron is just going to have a bit too much in the tank. I'm going to go for a 10-7 win for Kyron. And to finish off this really jam-packed top quarter, we've got Shaun Murphy, one of the most consistent players of the season. Amazingly though, he's not won a ranking title. He won the Champion of Champions, so obviously that's an invitational tournament. He's reached 4 other finals as well, but he's lost all the others. Lost to O'Sullivan twice. He lost to Luca Purcell, and I believe it was Michael White, the other final he lost earlier on in the season. He's up against Jamie Jones, and they played each other in the 2012 first round, and Jones won, and I believe it was 10-8. That was Jones's Crucible debut, and he was a man on fire. I think he made something like 7 or 8 centuries. He made the quarterfinals and got very close to beating Ali Carter in that match as well. And obviously, yesterday, no one saw the result coming. He beat Liang Wenbo 10-0 to qualify. That just shows you how well he's playing. If Shaun Murphy was playing like he has all season, I can only see him winning. But there seems to be some doubts about whether his back injury is still going on, if he's recovered from it. If he has recovered from it, like I say, I think he'll win. If there are still problems though, Jamie Jones can definitely pounce. He's definitely good enough to beat him. He's done it before. He shouldn't be afraid of this venue now. I'm just going to judge my prediction purely on the fact that I believe Shaun's back is in a better place than it was 2 weeks ago. I think this will go close though. Murphy tends to have really tough opening rounds. This is going to be no different. But I'm going to plumb for the same scoreline as Colin Wilson and say Shaun Murphy's going to win 10-7. Now we're moving on to quarter 2. Cheonu, I am so pleased that he qualified. It's been a long time coming, too long. He should have made it to the crucible long before now. So talented, it's frightening how fast he plays. I mean, I honestly would guess he's faster than running. He just gets down, pots it, gets up, gets down. It's crazy. And I was really impressed with him yesterday. From Atal, he made I think he made an 80 and a 90 to win a really close match against Alfie Burden. That does wonders for him, because I've always wondered how his mentality is when matches go close. But he proved me a bit wrong, because I thought he was going to lose from Atal. But like I say, delighted he's got through. Unfortunately, though, he's been handed a real tough draw against John Higgins. No one would want to play Higgins, but Tepe, he's openly admitted that he hates safety. I don't think I've ever seen him play a safety shot, to be perfectly honest. A bit like Judd Trump in 2011, he's the kind of player that's just going to go for everything. And if they do go in, if they all just go in and he's making 60s, 70s, 80s, then he's got a hell of a chance. But obviously it's his debut here. He's up against just the most formidable match player you can face. I think Higgins could tie him up in knots. I don't think he'll be a walkover. I think Tepe will certainly win frames when he gets in. But it's just a question of how many chances Higgins is going to give him. John's gone a bit quiet back end of the season. He was very consistent at the start. But, he proved me wrong last year. I thought he would never get close to winning another world title. And he very nearly beat Selby in the final. I think he's going to come through this one as well. I know it seems like I'm just siding for the seeds, going for the easy option. But unfortunately, I think Higgins is going to come through. I'm going to say 10-5 to John. And yet again, we've got another really interesting match. 2015 champion Bingham against someone like Cheonu, Jack Lazowski. I think Lazowski's a little bit more refined. Both incredibly quick. Both can score for fun. Both can pop from anywhere. I just think Lazowski's got it toned down just a little bit better. And he's up against Stuart Bingham. He obviously was banned for betting allegations, but since his return, he's actually done pretty well. He got to the quarterfinals in Beijing last month. He got to the final in that Romanian Invitational tournament that I didn't really give a damn about, but he's played a lot. Even when he was suspended, he was in pro-ams up and down the country. He's a guy that just lives and breathes snooker. This is a really tough draw, and it's a tough draw for both of them. They both would have wanted easier draws than this. Lazowski, I remember when he came, it was his debut in 2013. And he got hammered by Barry Hawkins 10-3, and he didn't really show what he could do. And so I'm surprised that he never got back sooner. Obviously, it's been 5 years since then, and this is his second appearance. I would like Jack to make a name for himself. He's had a cracking season, and I think he's beginning to just explore that potential that he's always had. And you know what? I'm actually going to go for a qualifier to win in this one. I think it's going to be incredibly close. And yeah, I just think Jack's going to edge it. I'm going to go 10-8 to Jack. Moving on, we've got Luca Brissell and Ricky Walden. Brissell's gone off the radar, I'm afraid, since he had that blistering start at the start of the season. Won a tournament. He beat Selby in the Champion of Champions, which I know really impressed Stephen Hendry. And yeah, everyone was starting to think that he was fulfilling his potential, which he was. But since then, he's gone completely off the rails. He's been using about 20 million cues. I don't know if he's got that sorted out or not. I know I can't remember what tournament it was. Was it the Masters? He came down with 2 cues, one for playing safety shots, one for playing when he was in amongst the balls. Just a bit weird. I don't think he can afford to do that here. And he's up against a very seasoned competitor. Glad to see Walden through. He's had a really tough sort of 18 months, couple of years with back injuries. Good to see him back. He's a top 16 player for me. And actually one of my favourite players to watch. I believe he's very underrated. You know, he's won 3 ranking titles. That speaks for itself. He's very fluent. And if Luca Brissell hasn't sorted out his cue issues, then I think he's going to lose. I don't think it'll be a shock at all. I think actually Ricky Walden starts this match as favourite, even though he's the qualifier. And he was very impressive. I think he's got a bit of a cold, but he impressed me a lot during the qualifiers. And I think he's going to win. I'm going to go for 10-6 to Walden. And now then we get to Judd Trump. Obviously, we know what happened last year. We know he talked himself up, saying no one else was playing snooker like he was, and then lost first round to Rory McLeod. He's up against Chris Wakelin, another debutant. Arguably another match that Judd Trump is going to start heavy favourite as. I wouldn't write Chris off at all. I think he's a very, very solid player. He's not spectacular by any means. Nothing like Judd, he will be very flamboyant. Chris kind of just, mops up, gets the job done. And I think he beat Sean Murphy 6-0. I think it was 6-0 in Beijing. I know Sean had his back troubles, but still that's a cracking win. Good to see him qualifying. I think he'll be a breath of fresh air. And it's interesting, I think Judd Trump always plays his best when he's an underdog. So if he was playing someone like Selby, like O'Sullivan, or even if we were talking in the qualifiers, maybe he was playing like a Stephen Maguire or a Ryan Day, I think he would up his game. But the expectation is on him to win. I don't think anyone's going to give Wakelin a chance. And Judd's got to start performing. It would be a travesty if he never won the world title, but it's far too early to start talking about that. He's only 28, let's remember. Had a bit of a rough season. Started off really well, fell off the tracks. I think he started to build himself back up though. He reached the semi-finals of the Players' Championship, and I think he got a kick when he was in to beat O'Sullivan. It could be his year. He's certainly not as strong a candidate as he's been previously, but I think that might help him. Like I say, I think he performs better when the expectation isn't on him. I don't think this would be a walkover. I think Wakelin certainly has enough experience to sort of settle in, win a few frames, but I can't see past Judd here. I think he'll win 10-5. Now we're into the third section, and we start all Chinese clash, another cracker, Ding Junhui against Zhao Guodong. The amount of times you see Judd Trump and Ding come up in the question of who's the best player never to win a world title. It's a bit sad, and I'd love Ding to win it. I love the guy so much. He's got close the last 2 years, and I actually thought when he beat O'Sullivan in the quarterfinals last year, I thought maybe this is his time, but he just fell short against Selby. And Selby's the only person that's denied him the world title in the past 2 years. He's knocking on the door. He's getting very, very close. And he's built up his form. He had a very quiet spell over the sort of winter period when people were questioning if he cared about the matches he was playing in. But I think we get used to that from Ding now. He's a very moody player. When he's on it, he'll be a handful for anyone, and he'll win his fair share of tournaments. But he does have lulls when he just kind of looks uninterested. I really hope that doesn't happen over the next 2 weeks, and I don't think it will. But he's playing a really, really tough qualifier in Gelgadong. Last year he qualified and he absolutely dismantled Ryan Day in the first round before losing to Mark Selby. And he qualified very, very easily. He beat Adam Duffy 10-1 to get here. It will be a question of does Zhao have too much respect for Ding? I always ask this to myself whenever another Chinese player plays against Ding, because, he's their hero. It doesn't matter how old or young they are. Ding's the guy that started this all, this Chinese boom in the sport. But yeah, it's actually quite a tight match to call. I think a lot of people would say Ding, off the tongue. He's certainly favourite, but it'll be interesting if it goes close to see how Ding's feeling. Can he handle some early pressure in the cooker that is the crucible? I think he will, and I think it's going to go tight. I think this could also go to a decider. I'm going to go for Ding 10, Zhao 9. Now I've got Ryan Day. What a season he's had. If you had told me this time 12 months ago that Ryan Day was going to be coming into this World Championship as a 3-time tournament winner, I'd say you're insane. It's great though. He's long deserved this. He's a player that should have won this amount of titles and more a long, long time ago. Great to see him playing well. Very tough opening round though. Anthony McGill. Unspectacular. I think it's unfair that a lot of people call him boring. I think he's a great tactician. He's certainly learned from John Higgins. There's absolutely no doubt about that. There's obvious parallels in their game. There was a time, I think it was 2015, McGill beat Selby when he was defending champion, and everyone kind of thought future world champion, as we always do. I don't think Anthony McGill is quite at that level, but he's certainly a handful for anyone that he draws. This is tough. Ryan Day is certainly the man in form, arguably the favourite for this match. I would argue a case for both. But I'm just going to side with him. I think he's been phenomenal all season, and it'll be a shame to see him lose first round. It'll be a shame to see Anthony McGill lose first one as well. But I'm going to go for Ryan Day to win 10-8. Moving on, Marco Fu. It feels like we've barely seen him this season. I think he's only played in about 8 tournaments. Obviously, after the Masters, he took a break. Something was wrong with his eye, and he tweeted a few weeks ago saying he was definitely going to play, but his eyes are no better, no worse than they were. Marco Fu is very hit and miss at the best of times. So to know how he's going to perform after a good 3-4 months out of the game, it's hard. He's playing Hao Shan, who dismantled Rory McLeod. Really, really impressive. I thought Rory was going to do a bit of a job on him, but it was the other way around. Hao Shan won 10-2. He's had a very, very good season. Again, he was like, I think he was about 14 when we first saw him. Still just as skinny, still looks about 14, but he's rusted off a few rough edges. Still very raw. He doesn't have much of a tactical game, and that could be where Marco Fu will benefit. And if Marco Fu had been playing all season, or at least had a few decent wins under his belt, I would heavily favour Fu. It's just I don't know what Fu's going to turn up. He could have an absolute blinder, come in really, really fresh. But I don't think Marco Fu's that kind of player. I think he's the kind of player that needs a bit of confidence to play well. And it depends how Hao Shan handles the crucible nerves. I believe this is his debut as well. Ooh, it's a flip of a coin. I'm gonna go for Hao Shan actually. I think he'll win 10-7, but I expect that to be a pretty scrappy match, pretty nervy from both. And yeah, I just don't think Marco's gonna have the confidence in his game to produce the win there. Now we've got Barry Hawkins, the player that's made the Crucible his own really. What is it? 4 semi-finals in 5 years. It's crazy to think. I think he'd only won about one match before 2013. Then he reached a final. And then he made 2 semi-finals in a row. He reached the quarterfinals and then reached the semi-finals again last year. He's got real Crucible pedigree, and he knows when to come alive in the season. He's had an awful season. Unfortunately, I think he's had some bad stuff to deal with off the table. Thankfully, though, it seems like that's behind him. He played really, really well to get to the final in Beijing, but just never really turned up against Mark Selby. He'll be coming in with a lot of confidence now, and he knows he can do it on this stage. Stuart Carrington, this is his 3rd appearance at the Crucible. He's never won a match. He's a bit like Chris Wakelin for me. Both very steady, very solid players. Even though they're maybe inexperienced, they're very mature. They won't play many reckless shots. I think Carrington pushed Liang Wenbo pretty close last year. I think he lost 10-6 or 10-7. And it's a shame because when I saw him qualify, I thought this could be the year when he finally breaks that duck and he wins a match. But Hawkins, he's just not the player you want to draw. He'll give it a good go. I have no doubt about that. But I think Barry's going to come through. I think he'll win 10-6. And now down to the final quarter. Another really, really tough quarter to call if you're looking at potential semi-finalists. But start off Mark Williams against Jimmy Robertson. It's pretty incredible how well Mark Williams has played this season. He's won 2 tournaments, well 3 if you include the 6 Reds, but 2 ranking tournaments after about 7 years without one. He's been the most consistent player, apart from Ronnie. There's no doubt about that. He doesn't lose early in tournaments. He's reached so many quarterfinals. I've lost count. I think it's about 7 or 8. And he's played Jimmy at least once this season. I remember that match at the German Masters. Williams won 5-3. Jimmy's growing. He's growing every season in belief. Very talented player, and being from the South Coast, the same as I am, rooting for him a bit. I'd love to see him finally win a match, but this is a horrible draw. He played very, very well against Mark Allen last season in the first round, just lost 10-8. But I fancy Mark Williams to go pretty deep in this tournament. Could he win a 3rd world title? I think that might be a stretch too far. But I certainly expect him to give it a real good go. And unfortunately for Jimmy, I think he'll just be a bit too strong. So I'm going to go for a 10-5 Mark Williams. Now we've got the 2nd Robertson, the Aussie Neil Robertson. I I think he's starting to rediscover that confidence that he had about 3 years ago. It's a shame that he dropped off in the way that he did. Last season in particular was a shocker. Didn't reach the Masters, but he firmly cemented his place in the top 16 for the World Championships. And Rob Milkins, now he's only ever won one match at the Crucible, and you can guess who that was against, Neil Robertson. I remember the match very, very well because Neil was heavy favourite to win the World Championships that year. And Milkins just, it was a really scrappy second session, and he just handled it better than Neil. I like Milkins. He's got a very unconventional cue action. He just gets down, a bit like Techeanu, just gets down, pots the ball. Does he have it in him to win a long distance match? I mean, that sounds silly considering he's just won 3, but to do it at the Crucible is a different animal. But there's no doubt that both of these players will be thinking about that 2013 match. Neil will be wanting revenge, and Rob Milkins will be thinking, you know what, I've done it once, I can do it twice. Neil's not playing. He's playing well, but he's not playing at the form he used to be at. It's a difficult one. I think it'll be a bit of a scoring fest, really. But I think Neil will just score a little bit heavier. And I'm going to say 10-7 to Neil Robertson. Next up, Ali Carter. Dreadful season, to be perfectly frank. I think he reached a semi-final in maybe August, but I don't remember the last time he was even in like the last 16. I don't know the guy, obviously, but he doesn't really look like he's given much interest in the sport this season. He's kind of just rocked up the tournaments and gotten beaten and gone home and deja vu every other tournament. He does have incredible Crucible pedigree. He's reached a final twice, reached a couple of other semi-finals, I believe, as well. And this is actually a rerun of the first round last year. Graham Dott won that as well, 10-7. And Dottie's had a bit of a renaissance this year. He made back-to-back finals in Germany, and then at the shootout lost them both. It's old school, this match. There's no other word to describe it. Two real battlers. But like I say, I think I just get the impression that Ali Carter's kind of given up on the sport a little bit, especially this season. But you can't give up on a match at the Crucible. That's just criminal. I'm sure he'll give it a good go. But Dott's playing really, really well. And again, he's another player that just thrives on the Crucible pressure. And I think he's going to win again. I'm going to go for 10-6 to Graham Dott. And then, last but not least, how could we forget the Rocket? I've kind of ran out of words to describe this season for him. Won 5 tournaments, been on fire really. Made centuries for fun. I think he's made about 70. But he's been handed just about the most difficult tie of the round, Stephen Maguire. This is an absolute cracker. I got very excited, a bit like Rob Walker did when this got drawn out of the hat. Maguire, he had a spell. I think it was 4 years when he was a seed and he lost in the first round every time, and then he fell out of the top 16 last year, and then went all the way to the quarterfinals as a qualifier. Maybe a little bit less pressure on him works better. But he doesn't have the best record against O'Sullivan. I can't really remember the last time he beat Ronnie. I mean, I know he did in the UK Championship yonks ago. but recently I think O'Sullivan's got the better of their head-to-heads. They're usually close matches, I'll give him that, but it's usually a tale of O'Sullivan getting off to a good start. Maguire tries to peg it back, but O'Sullivan just such a good front runner that he kills the match off. A bit like Selby, well, like any of the seeds, if you're going to beat them, the best time to do it is the first round, I guess. But O'Sullivan will be sharp. He knows he's got to play well from the off. And I think he's got a bit of a mental edge over Stephen Maguire. And I think O'Sullivan will come through. I think it'll be a close match. Maybe not a decider. But, you know, it's important for Maguire to at least win 4 frames in that opening session to give himself any chance. But for me, O'Sullivan's going to run out a 10-7 winner. So yeah, that concludes my predictions for this year's first round. Like I say, I am absolutely abysmal at predicting matches, especially at snooker. So if you're into betting, go against everything that I've just said. Definitely do not take my predictions and take them to the bookies, because you will lose money. But it's such a high quality lineup. There's gonna be shocks. I think there's gonna be quite a few seeds that are gonna fall, and I'm not gonna predict a winner yet, because it's such a marathon tournament that you can't really predict it from before the tournament's even started. But I will say that I know it's obvious, I know it's a bit boring, but Mark Selby he's my number one favourite. He always is at the Crucible now. It's going to take something very, very special to beat him. But saying that, I hope you are looking forward, I should say, to this tournament as much as I am. It's going to be a feast. It always is. And I just hope it delivers. But thanks for listening. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with me? Let me know your predictions for the first round. And yeah, enjoy the tournament, and I'll catch you all later.